Welcome back. Thursday, 1 o'clock Eastern time until the end of college football, and then we will go every day at 1 o'clock Eastern. Remember to scan that QR code on your screen or join the chat on YouTube to send us your questions, and we will we'll try to answer as many as we can. Douglas, we have a huge, huge day of games, and the Maui Invitational has brought us two matchups that might be better than the Final Four matchups come April in Phoenix, Arizona. We've got a pair of top 10 matchups today, beginning with number 7 Tennessee taking on number 2 Purdue. That's kind of the undercard, Doug. Then it's number 1 Kansas against number 4 Marquette in the late game. All right, let's start with the SEC Big Ten showdown. Is Tennessee, Doug, coming off that win yesterday where Dalton connected, are they a real contender?
I think so. I mean, look, the challenge for Rick's teams, even going back to when he was at Texas, was unless he had an NBA caliber point guard, DJ Augustine, for example, or Travis Ford. I mean, not Travis Ford.
TJ.
TJ Ford. Sorry, TJ Ford. They weren't a Final Four caliber team. Since he's been at Tennessee, it's been some of that. He's had young point guards, injuries to his point guards. But the other part is they've had an issue scoring, right? They just can't score enough when they get to the tournament. And I think that Dalton Knecht, who he has his deficiencies at the defensive end, but Rick, I'm sure, is like, look, at some point, I got to be able to score. And this guy's a matchup nightmare, especially when he's playing the 4. I think they have enough scoring around them. And they're going to be physically tough and defend. So the answer is, yeah, they're a legit contender. And you mentioned these matchups, and you have Purdue, who for most people has underachieved in the NCAA tournament, despite their lofty amount of successes in the regular season in the Big Ten. The same can be said for Tennessee. So there is a little bit of mirroring there, but the issues are dissimilar, right? Purdue's struggles are, can their center come out and guard? And are their guards athletic enough? Tennessee, it's just, can you score enough? That's really the two issues.
So for me, Purdue certainly looks better than we saw him last year because, honestly, Braden Smith is a year older, and he was terrific yesterday in the win against Gonzaga. I thought the other key factor for me, Doug, is Lance Jones, the Southern Illinois transfer they brought over. He wasn't great in the first half, but he scored 11 after the break. Gonzaga couldn't make a 3 in the second half. But what Lance Jones gives them is an athlete, a defender. He's tough. He's fearless. He's not a great shooter, but he's willing to take the shots. So to me, the biggest question mark, and we've talked about this a little bit with Purdue, is what do you do at that 4 spot? I think you've got everything else you need, but what do you do there? Because to me, I'm coming to the conclusion, Doug, I don't think Trey Kaufman-Renn and Zach Edey, they're the answer playing together. I just don't think the spacing is what you're going to need.
No, I don't think so. And, today is going to be a challenge, right? Because they're going to have to match up with Dalton Knecht and with the various lineups that Tennessee's going to throw at you. I mean, look, their basic issues are threefold, but they're kind of the same, right? One, Braden Smith is further along. As I told you last year, right? Freshmen were asking too much of him. And he could just get kind of overwhelmed by speed and overall athleticism. That's improved, but still could be an issue at the highest level. Okay? Zach Edey struggled to make shots early in the game, going back to yesterday, right? 4 of his first 14, I think. And then he got it going. Can he defend? Can he move with great energy defensively? And if you can push him off his spot, now all of a sudden that changes their offense. And the last thing is, do they have anybody, and you mentioned Jones, do they have anybody who can create his own shot or a shot for others? And yes, obviously Zach Edey can inside, but it's not like you can give him the ball and he's going to create. Smith is really good, but not a blur. So they need their offense and they need sets. Jones is the one guy who you feel like can break off of that. I still think Mason Gillis is probably the best all around there, but for whatever reason, he's fallen out of favor in terms of gaining minutes from last year to this year. So this is The other games are good tests because you see how you develop. Now you throw them into the deep end against a legit, older, physical Tennessee team. And
Yeah, I also thought, Doug, Miles Colvin has been really good. And he's a guy who can help him because he can make threes. He can get to the basket. He's only a freshman, Roosevelt Colvin's son, former NFL linebacker. So he's big, strong, athletic. And really, Lawyer struggled a little bit here. He really struggled yesterday. So could you see Colvin taking some of his minutes at the end of the day, Doug, because he gives you something a little bit different, right? Lawyer played terrific the first half of last year, but he wore down and he was injured. Now you've got, honestly, a battle for some of those minutes, which I think is kind of a good thing at that 2 spot.
Can be. Not everybody reacts well to the minutes getting shrunk. Can hurt guys' confidence, and you have to have guys playing confidently. But the best thing that Purdue does is role acceptance. So whatever those roles are, but they're being established in Honolulu this week. Make no mistake about it. All the preseason stuff, all the early season stuff, what it feels like against this level of competition, because Purdue's not really playing for a Big Ten regular season or tournament title. Their sights are much bigger. And I think that's really what Paint's going to try and figure out is, okay, what can I do against legit dudes, against legit teams, not ones that we can roll it out and we're just better than.
So I'm looking forward to the late game even more. To me, Marquette won a close one against UCLA last night, late. Give Mick Cronin a lot of credit. He fought Marquette, which is a veteran team with a very young group up until the end. But to me, again, this is kind of a contrast of styles. Marquette, they're long, they're athletic, they're guard heavy, they can make shots from the perimeter. Kansas, obviously, more interior focus with Hunter Dickinson. What's the key for Marquette to be able to win this game, Doug? Is it being able to pull Hunter out and expose him defensively with some of their athletic bigs?
Yeah, I think that's a big part. It's a big thing is can he defend? And then offensively, if he doesn't get to that, he wants to get to that left side block and turn over his right shoulder. If you limit him, how does he play? Or can you speed him up? And then again, for Kansas, we saw him in person in Chicago last week. Both teams have a great point guard. A little different, but still pass first, set up your team point guard. My question for Kansas is, do they have anybody else who can handle the ball? Do they have anybody else who can get into a defense? Whereas Marquette has, I think, a lot more guys that can do things with the ball. But have they seen the type of size? Let's not underestimate Kevin McCullough as well and what he can do. You have 3 guys that have probably played, 100 conference games?
Yeah, ton of minutes.
Or close to. And I'm counting Dickinson because of what he did at Michigan. Like that type of veteran experience in those types of leagues, you've seen just about everything, even the kind of whirling dervish style we're going to see from Marquette. So it's a great test for all 4 of these clubs. And it's perfect, right? You want to win a game, feel good about yourself, and then you want to play a game or 2 in which you could lose, and you want to end up 2-1. Like that's 2-1 is like the worst you're thinking of. 1 and 2 is not terrible if you're competitive in these next 2 games, but that's what's at stake here when you go to Maui.
So I worry a little bit too on Tyler Kolek coming back-to-back days. His ankle was not in great shape a week or so ago. We'll see. He's a tough kid, but now he's got to go up against DeJuan Harris, who's one of the better defensive point guards in the country. The other thing, Doug, on the flip side, how about this? DeJuan Harris and Hunter Dickinson so far from 3, they're 12 of 18 from deep. The law of averages is going to catch up with Kansas. Right now they're shooting 38% from 3. Those 2 guys have carried them. To me, again, I could see Kansas having one of those 3 for 21 nights from 3 and Marquette winning a game here that's, 70-66 or something like that.
Yeah, then you factor in KJ Adams, who lost his mother. Just terrible, terrible news. We don't know how he reacts, how a team reacts. But in the just trying to figure out this team, no, I don't think Kansas is good. Those two are as good at three-point shooters as the numbers would tell you. They'll be regression towards the mean. But I also think the rest of the team will shoot the basketball better, right? So it'll probably end up equaling out. This is, you look right now, KU averaging 93 a game, and they play fast, but not that fast. Marquette probably plays faster, but it's more a product of a couple of the games they were just physically dominant in. So, yeah, these are very easily second weekend previews, and you learn so much more about your team. And we know, Marquette's issues is, I thought you lost your best, most versatile athlete from last year, and so you may be more skilled, even though you lose Max Prosper. So, and then, for Kansas, we talked about it, like they're missing one guard. Right? They're missing one player. And, I don't think their bench as of now is strong enough to really help them. So you talked about Tyler Kolek in back-to-back nights. What does Kansas look like in back-to-back nights when they don't have much of a bench either? And then we mentioned Purdue and how their guards play against greater athleticism and talent. And then for Tennessee, can they actually score against a legit team? And Purdue is a legit big-time team.
Next up, the reigning national champs. They're still unbeaten this year. Should we start talking repeat? Check it out when we return here on Goodman versus Gottlieb. All right, welcome back. Goodman versus Gottlieb, Tuesday afternoon, and we have a heck of a slate tonight in Hawaii. But we also had a heck of a game yesterday in New York. And UConn, the defending national champs, without their star freshman, Stephen Castle, and Donovan Clingan playing a total of 13 minutes against Texas, they still were able to get past the Longhorns without much difficulty. All right, Doug, I'm going to go through a bunch of teams, and we're going to start with the Huskies. And on a scale of low, medium, or high, you're going to tell me, and then I'm going to weigh in, how confident you are about these teams. We're starting with UConn. As far as, again, making something happen in March and obviously having a good regular season, how high are you on UConn right now?
Making something happen in March and having a good regular season?
You know what I mean? Like UConn, the expectation.
Like, do I think they're a national? Do I think they're a favorite to win the national championship? No. Do I think that they're in anybody's discussion of the group of teams that could? Absolutely. One, you have guys that have done it. Two, you have a coaching staff that has a really good feel for not just how they want to play with their various lineups, right? When they play Clingan, they play one way. When they don't have him, they play another way. They have great versatility. And they've recruited some smart kids, tough kids. With a freshman point guard, though, that seems a little bit of a reach to think they're a favorite. But my confidence level is high that they'll compete for a Big East title, and they'll be in the second weekend of the NCAA tournament. Absolutely.
Yeah, I mean, Alex Karaban's awesome. Like a really good player. Cam Spencer gives you a veteran who's one of the best shooters in the country. Clingan, I still want to see it. Like, we've heard about it. And in short minutes, Donovan Clingan was really good last year. I want to see him be that dominant force. And they didn't need him to be that against Texas. And honestly, they played the right style without him because Texas didn't have a lot of bigs, so they decided to go small, and it worked out to their advantage. But I want to see Clingan be a 28-minute guy who's dominant, who you can feed down there, Doug, and he looks like a little bit like Zach Edey.
Yeah, again, we talked about this last year. Show me the traditional five that's won a national championship, right? I mean, in this sport, it's really hard because they make you come out and defend, and because you can zone and you can be super physical at the block. It's just hard to score in there. But I'm with you. But again, considering where they are, considering what they lost, considering the fact that they're now everybody's biggest game, even when it's in New York City, they're still a gigantic game. You have to be impressed, especially when you don't have your best freshman playing and dominating ball. Like that's a pretty good statement. I think the statement may be a little bit more about Texas than it is about UConn. And I'm not trying to take away from UConn's win, more that Texas struggled with Louisville and needed a last Max Abmas shot, and then they weren't really in the game yesterday against UConn, and that's disappointing considering some of the hype surrounding Texas.
Yeah, they also didn't have Caden Shedrick, who's out with shoulder injuries, and Dylan Dessou is out for the foreseeable future with injuries himself. So you're shorthanded if you're Texas. Dylan Mitchell was great. Max Abmas hasn't looked great so far. Now, Rodney Terry did a hell of a job last year, right? After a really difficult situation, Chris Beard is fired early in the season, and Rodney Terry takes over and takes them deep in the tournament. They were great. How much confidence do you have? Again, I'll give you the same low, medium, or high. How much confidence do you have in Texas this year?
Not the same in terms of, I thought last year was a Final Four team, and they're really one possession away from the Final Four. I don't think they're that team this year, but I could be wrong. I mean, I love Brock Cunningham, and obviously he's shown the lack of ego, come off the bench. Obviously without Shedrick, that changed. I just, you have two little guards that can both handle, can both score. The question becomes, can Max Abmas defend at the Big 12 level? In many ways, they should be more explosive and more proficient offensively playing those two together. They're just very different. It's the same staff. And as I kind of told you last year, my level of confidence, even though Chris Beard got fired, was fine because who coaches? Bob Dunwald coaching the offense, and then Rodney and the guys coaching the defense. Like, that all works together. But I think if you watch them, if they have Ron Holland, I know this is that's a national championship team, right? You got veteran guys, and then you got a wing who can go win you a game or two in the tournament. If not, they're not in general pop, but they're in that UConn next group of teams. And, just again, the only thing I'm concerned about with Rodney Terry is when they face some adversity, now that he's the head coach, is there criticism, whereas last year he did such a good job keeping together. There were no other issues, that there were no need for any sort of criticism.
They don't have that big wing, Doug. I think that is a major issue. Ron Holland could have provided that. He's not a great shooter, but, man, he's super athletic, and they don't really have that. There's a lot of pressure on their backcourt and Max Abmas to have to make shots. Virginia were smoked by Wisconsin yesterday. They scored 41 points, got blasted by a Badgers team that really hasn't looked good early on the season. Wisconsin losing to Tennessee, getting run out of the dunk in Providence. And Virginia, here's my biggest issue. And we give Tony Bennett so much credit because he is an elite coach, right? You almost say, like, listen, Tony can win with anybody, right? He can win with me and four other dudes who can't play. But what he doesn't have now is a dude. Reese Beekman's a nice player, but he's not a dude who can go get you 20. And he also, the big men really worry me, Doug. Blake Buchanan, the freshman from Coeur d'Alene, was great earlier in the season, and then he did nothing yesterday. Jacob Groves is a nice piece who you know well, but again, he didn't give you anything. They were absolutely manhandled on the glass, which you never see from a Virginia team. I don't have a ton of confidence in this team anymore. The only reason I have some confidence in them, and I'll go medium, is because of the guy coaching them.
And I don't know how good the middle and bottom of that league is.
True.
I think Pitt might be a little bit better. Pitt's got a young freshman star. Miami is going to be talented. Duke, we'll see what Carolina does. But, I'm still a little bit lost on the rest of that league. But I'm with you. I mean, again, and I'm not saying this to pick on Jacob Groves, right? But him and his brother started their career at Eastern Washington. They couldn't get to the tournament when they're at Oklahoma. So, again, it's telling you based upon, and they're not the only reasons that Oklahoma wasn't athletic enough at the Groves positions last year. So the reason Wisconsin can compete and win this game is they're not getting out-athleted as they do against many teams. Sure. And I think that's Virginia's issue here is, like, look, this is an era where schools that are legit bastions of academic greatness are going to struggle. They just are. Northwestern making the tournament last year, kind of a miracle. You've seen Stanford struggles, Vanderbilt struggles. And like Duke's a little bit different. Obviously, they have massive NIL. They have massive history. They're putting guys in the NBA. When Tony won a national championship, they weren't just coming off of the first one seed to lose to 16. They had pros. They had dudes. Yeah. And even then, they just survived to get there. So I do think this is a little bit of a talent thing, which is going to forever hold them back. But my confidence is still medium in that Tony Bennett is going to find a way to win 25 games. But their problem is going to be the problem that sometimes Kansas had. They're so well coached in the regular season, they get to the postseason, you're like, they're not really that talented, and they're going to lose because of it, even though they'll have a big number next to their name.
So you and I were super impressed last week at the United Center with Kentucky's performance against Kansas. Young, they fought him till the end. They didn't win the game, but again, they were very, very impressive despite having a couple guys really struggle. Antonio Reeves struggled shooting the ball. He was 3 for 17 from 3. DJ Wagner wasn't very good. Justin Edwards wasn't very good. Well, Kentucky plays at home against St. Joe's last night, and they need overtime. And they probably should have lost the game if the big man, Esendoko, I hope I'm saying the name right, makes 2 free throws at the end of regulation with about 15 seconds left. Kentucky might lose that game. Instead, it goes into overtime. Trey Mitchell hits a couple huge threes, and the Wildcats escape with a win against an A-10 middle-of-the-road type team. So where do you stand now, high, medium, or low, on Kentucky after watching them kind of have a really good performance and then a mediocre performance against the St. Joe's team. By the way, Doug, Eric Reynolds is the real deal for St. Joe's.
He was really good. He had 28 last night. He was talented coming off that ball screen. And by the way, I think I remember you and I talking about this, that this is utterly predictable from a Kentucky team, right? Main court games, they'll play great. Carolina, you'll see the best of them. They'll play with unbelievable energy. But when they play Marshall or UNC Wilmington, right? Do they respect Illinois State when they come into their building from Normal, Illinois? So this is kind of par for the course for Kentucky. This is where they are. They don't just they're not able to just roll it out and physically whoop everybody because they have so much youth and because they're still kind of figuring it out. I will point out, obviously the Stonehill game was a game which they had way more talent, but how they divvy up the minutes. Reed Shepherd didn't play well last night, but didn't play very much. The previous game, he played great. So I think that Cal's just going to go based upon feel and who's playing the best. But they have better three-point shooting than they've had in the past. Justin Edwards shot the ball well last night. The issue is with their guys that can shoot is can they guard? And that's where they struggled to defend St. Joe's. St. Joe's had their way with them in many ways. And that's going to be the challenge for this team. Better offensively, but worse defensively than they've been.
Well, because, again, you're going to see once they get into league play, teams that look a little bit like St. Joe's, right? Guards that can really beat you off the bounce. And Lynn Greer and Reynolds and Brown were doing that consistently. I actually thought my biggest takeaway for Kentucky was DJ Wagner in the second half, because I thought he did a good job on Reynolds, and he made some good plays. He set guys up. He was so much better in the second half than any half of basketball I had seen him play all season to this point. All right, we're going to go to Louisville, Doug, and he tricked me. That's what Kenny Payne said after yesterday when Indiana's Mike Woodson threw the zone at him. He tricked me. They hadn't practiced the zone a lot, I guess. And, really, Louisville had this one. They really had this one. And down the stretch, Indiana started throwing the ball down to Malik Renew on switches, and he kind of punished them. He got to the line. Xavier Johnson was good down the stretch. Indiana really hasn't looked good at all. I feel bad for Louisville in a way that they've come close in both these games. They played well against Texas and Indiana for, honestly, about 75 minutes, and they go back 0-2. Do you have any confidence that Louisville can win double-digit games this season? Double-digit games.
Yes. Yeah, they can win double-digit games. I mean, there's some marked improvement there. I mean, we can go into the how does Indiana not have if anybody can shoot? Like I don't know how that happens. But they're one possession away from beating Texas. They really had Indiana reeling. And now the challenge to them is, can they play with the same level of energy and focus with New Mexico State? Bellarmine, I think, is going to be a challenge. Didn't they lose to them last year? And they just moved the ball
Bellarmine's not that good this year, though. Bellarmine's not that good.
Right. Okay, so they got DePaul. DePaul stinks. That's the worst team in the Big East. You got Arch State. Pepperdine can come in and beat you, but they shouldn't. I mean, if you're Louisville, you shouldn't. So, yeah, can they get there? They can. But you got to start winning these games. Otherwise, you start looking up at the scoreboard and everybody has the same opinion. Oh, no, here we go again. Where you have a lead against Texas, you have a lead against Indiana, and you can't close. Teaching teams how to actually win those games is probably the hardest part about coaching. And sometimes you just have to do it, and then everything else falls into place. So can they? Yes. Will they? Probably not.
I was surprised that Kenny Payne went away from Tyler Johnson. He was kind of having his way, getting in the lane, making plays for his teammates a little bit, and then he pulled them from the game, and I thought that's where he lost momentum. And then again, it just looked like they had no clue how to go against a zone. They lost everything. Indiana ends up getting away with escaping, because that could have been an absolute a terrible loss if the Hoosiers had gone down and come back from that one with a loss to Louisville. All right, coming up.
Go ahead. I'm sorry. The interesting part about the zone thing is, and I understand he didn't mean anything by it, and because he hasn't won, we're going to crush Kenny Payne for saying he tricked me. Yeah. But you got to, I mean, at this point in time, if you haven't put in better zone stuff, like that's a shame on you thing, right? You've had exhibition games, you've had a secret scrimmage. You always block off time to go against zone. It's fair. He has a young team, and that's hard to just flip when you haven't prepped for it, when you didn't see it on tape. But that's what you're supposed to bring to the table when you're coaching at this level.
Coming up, we head out to the desert, where Arizona and a struggling Michigan State team are set to face off on Thanksgiving. We preview that matchup next here on Stadium. All right, welcome back. Goodman versus Gottlieb. And there's another top 25 matchup brewing, not just tonight in Maui, Doug. Out in Palm Springs, number 3 Arizona will play number 21 Michigan State on Thanksgiving. So while you eat your turkey and your stuffing, because I know you're gonna eat some stuffing too, 4 o'clock on Fox Eastern Time, big time matchup. Now Arizona went into Duke and won in Cameron, and I think surprised a lot of people. Tommy Lloyd has been doing this every year, right? They haven't been ranked high in the preseason, and they've been great in the regular season and coming right out of the gate. Well, Michigan State, kind of the opposite, right? They lose at home to James Madison. They lose to Duke at the Champions Classic. They played a couple get-right games, Doug, but against who? You know, Butler, Alcorn State. Yeah, like anybody. listen, those aren't games that we're going to really take a lot from. Can Michigan State go out there and win that game in the West Coast against an Arizona team that's got a lot of pieces?
Yeah, there's no reason Michigan State can't. And I think it's a little bit better matchup for Manny Sissoko than he had against Duke. They're still trying to figure out kind of who they are in their rotation. I don't know if you saw, but Fears did play a little bit more. In the most recent get right games. Look, Arizona looked great against Duke. They looked okay otherwise. Like, they played an unbelievable game. Remember, this game, it's being played outdoors as well, so we'll see what happens with the shooting. I mean, when I hear outdoor games this time of year, I think of that game at Petco Park that San Diego State played against San Diego, and I think they lost like 49-48. Nobody can make a shot. Aircraft carrier games, nobody can make a shot. So I think they're playing a tennis center. So let's see out at Indian Wells. Let's see what it looks like when they play. But can they? Yeah. Will they? I don't know. They have to shoot the basketball better, a higher volume of 3-point shots, and play more of 2023 basketball. Get to the rim on drives, playing a little bit too much out of post-ups for my taste. Yeah. And then, who can create shots for themselves and for others. But this game should be a really good watch because Arizona always likes to play free and fast. And Michigan State's at their best when they're going up and down and pushing the basketball. The Big Ten games get kind of, half court, locked in and running a lot of sets. This one feels like a game in the 80s, which would be a really good watch.
So to me, the key for Michigan State, as much as anything, is Jaden Akins. Right? Like, I think he can be a dude. He can help out Tyson Walker, take some of that pressure off him. He played better in that the last get right game against Alcorn State. He's got to get his confidence, get that offense going, because he can be a 3-level scorer, Doug. Like, he's shown that before. He's healthy now. There's no excuse. So I'm gonna stop you real quick, okay? Yeah.
So just so people understand what a 3-level scorer is: 3-pointers, mid-range, at the rim. Okay. He's not a mid-range guy, right? He can score, into the post. He can score, and he's an improved 3-point shooter. But he's not a 3-level scorer. What he can be, and this is what my plea, and I've texted Izzo this, my plea is, let me take a look at him at the 5. And I think they have. I put Hogard at the 4. Like, play small. You're physical defensively. I play him at the 5. He's got Ballo on him. He can do whatever he wants.
Doug, I'm as tall as Jaden Akins. You can't play him at the 5. That's insane.
Well, again, sorry. I misspoke for 1 second. Okay, I'm not saying you play him at the 5. I'm saying you downshift and you go small. Okay, that's what I'm saying.
Okay, that's fair.
I misspoke. Okay, so make sure we clean that one up and edit, if you will. But when when you're looking at their game,
you're saying they're 5 men. What you're saying is their 5 men aren't good enough. Sissoko gives you nothing offensively. Cooper's not.
I was thinking Malik Hall.
Yeah, Malik Hall for 5. I'm good there.
Yes.
I'm good there.
Yes, because Malik Hall, he's probably 6'6", 6'7", and I think you can play, because the problem their run is, like, AJ Hogard, who's a bigger guard, not a great shooter. Okay, so you're either playing him or Fears essentially at the 1, and I'm saying you play them both together. Okay, and you play Hogard at the 4, essentially the 4, right? Again, you're going to be limited in terms of your rebounding, but it's usually the thing that Michigan State does and teaches the best is rebounding. The problem is that they want to fire out those wings. So I think, look, how many Michigan State fans have been frustrated with Manny Sissoko for the last year and a half? They're like, man, here we go again, right? So
yes.
Why do we keep doing the same thing? Like, try a different way. And so, yes, I misspoke when I was talking about Akins. A little brain fog early in the morning. I meant more Malik Hall. And then you can play Akins, okay, along with Fears. Or you can play, or play 3 guards together, where you have Jaden Akins and, then you have the ability, Jade Akins and Tyson Walker together. I know you try and play with Hogard. Can you play him with Fierce? Are you too small that way? But you can get up and extend defensively. I think that there's a lot there that they haven't gotten to, right? We haven't seen the best of Booker. I think you're going to play some with Cohen Carr at the 5 and just be really athletic. And they have Cohen Carr wired pretty well. Like all he's doing is fly into the rim for alley-oops and finishes and cuts and offensive boards. So some of the stuff is breaking through. They just have to find the right lineups. And Arizona's a hard one because they're going to be able to score. Like, count it out. They're going to be able to score. So you got to figure out how you're going to score with them and then slow them down some.
So we got Maui, which is the best event. And then you've got the Battle of Atlantis, which is always really, really good. So I got a little game for you. All right. Would you rather, as we look to the field in Atlantis? I'm going to start with this one. Texas Tech and Villanova. Would you rather have Grant McCasland coaching your team or Kyle Neptune?
Grant McCasland.
Why?
I mean, he's proven that he can coach. I mean, Kyle did a very good job in a short period of time before he got to Villanova, right? When he was at
Fordham.
Fordham. Okay, and he flipped that thing pretty well. But I think Grant a little bit. And look, the only knock on Grant is he keeps telling people, "No, I want to play faster than I played at North Texas," and you're like, it wasn't. When you inherit a team, you try and do the best you can, but that became his program, and they played slow. So I think he's got a little bit longer. Kyle was better in a short period of time at Fordham, whereas Grant kind of built it into a really, really good program. And they both, of course, were assistants on national championship teams, so they have that as the background. I feel like Grant's proven it a little bit more as a head coach, whereas Kyle, and I'm sure last year, even though he had been and he's a Nova guy, that's still like going and sitting down and trying to operate somebody else's remote control when Jay Wright had it for 20 years. So you got to kind of learn as you go and adjust it. But Nova has the history. They have guys in the league. They have the NIL, and they're not better. And, whereas I think Texas Tech is going to be better, and I think his style fits with how they played 2 years ago when Tech was really good.
135 wins for Grant McCasland at North Texas. Was also a JUCO coach, head coach for years at Midland, was a D2 head coach for a year, Arkansas State for a year. So I'm going with the experience as the head coach, and I would take Grant McCasland as well over Kyle Neptune. Here's a really good one, Doug. I can't wait to see who you pick on this one.
Yeah.
Point guard play for me is everything. Memphis, Michigan. All right, so you got the grizzled vet, Javon Quinterly, who feels like has been around longer than Robbie Hummel was around when he played in college. And then you got the sophomore who's been really good at Michigan, Doug McDaniel. So Javon Quinterly or Doug McDaniel, who are you taking as your point guard?
Javon Quinterly.
Ooh.
Yeah, and Nova fans will tell you, like, was not a fan when he was at Nova, struggled at times with him when he was at Alabama. But if you watch him, he's gotten to a place where I think he's in a better place with the game. Like, he realizes the NBA thing. It's going to be, he'll have to probably go overseas or G League and find the right way in. He's not playing for anything other than to try and win and, make some money on NIL. And then he knows it'll kind of take care of itself moving forward, because Quinterly has the talent and he's seen everything. And, he had the knee injury and he came back, and I think he accepted that role last year with Bama really well. Like, I think the kid's very much matured. He's a grown-up, and that's really the reason why. Was DUG Doug is do I like how he's played so far? Yeah, but this is very much a step up based upon who they've played against thus far, right? Like, don't give me St. John's as a great litmus test at this point in time in the season. Give me, this is a legit program. I think Memphis is a little bit underrated. Like, didn't you have them in your top 25?
I did. I mean, but they beat a Missouri team that just got done losing to Jackson State too. So I'm going Doug McDaniel here only because of the upside. I think he's going to continue to get better. Quinterly has never been consistent, Doug. That's my biggest question with Javon Quinterly. You know, he bolted that Alabama program in the summer, kind of a weird deal to leave when he did. I just don't know if I trust Javon Quinterly in a big spot where Doug McDaniel, I'm starting to trust him in a big spot. All right, coming up, Thanksgiving, just a couple days away, Doug. We're going to let you know what some teams are thankful for. That's on the other side of the break. Stick around. All right, welcome back. Goodman versus Gottlieb, and it is Turkey Day, just a couple days away. And I know I'm thankful for doing the show with you, Doug. I'm thankful for the opportunity to be able to see you twice a week. I saw you in person last week, and then I'm going to see you every day come mid-January. So I'm very thankful.
As am I. This is a really cool way of doing this, and it's. You and I have talked about this for years, and we're not the only ones. We're like, man, why can't we just have a place to talk about college basketball every day? And we do. So as soon as the national championship game is done, you'll see our ugly faces every day.
Every day. All right. I'm going to run through some teams with you, and we're going to talk about what these teams should be most thankful for. I'm going to start with number 10, Miami. All right. And the biggest thing, and you may laugh at me here, the biggest thing Miami should be thankful for is John Ruiz, because his money, and I know he's lost a ton of money lately, the big booster who's taking care of the football program, his money, the NIL, got Nigel Pack to Miami and helped get Norchad Ormier to Miami. And that kind of got this thing going and kept it going and got him the Final Four. And last I checked, Nigel Pack is thriving right now. And this Miami team is really good again. Am I crazy to say, hey, John Ruiz, thank you?
No, you're not wrong. I mean, they're there because of the money. That's, whether it's real or it's out of thin air money. And did they actually get everything they were told they were going to get? I still think, though, Coach L is his energy, his effervescence. Because if you go and you watch Miami play, previous to when they started, putting these teams together with NIL, it was the same experience. You have a good staff, but it's just more, he's got great positive energy on a daily basis. And Miami went from a program to, it's fun to go down there, it's fun to watch them play, and now they got really good players and they're competitive at the top level nationally.
All right, next one, I'll let you start with this one. Alabama. By the way, Alabama is one of the few programs in the country right now that has a ranked football and a ranked men's basketball team. What should they be thankful?
Were they thankful for?
Correct.
I mean, I think they're thankful that they got Nate Oates when they did. Talking about a star on the rise. And he lost his whole staff, remember, from last year. Yeah. Lost his best player, and yet here they still are a ranked team. And, you have to have the right guy for Alabama. The right guy wins. Mark Godfrey won for a long time, but football wasn't what it is now. And you have to have, an amount of ego, but you have to have the ability to put it in check because you're never going to be number one, right? You're never going to be you just got to go about your business, take the benefits of football. The visits you can get anybody to visit. Okay, you're going to have plenty of money. But when football wants something and you want something, they're going to get first choice. That's the way it works. So I think it's not just Nate's coaching, which is very good. He also does a great job of player eval and a staff eval. Remember, when you remake your staff, you got to put together a new one. It's got to work. But I think it's also his lack of ego versus Alabama's football program that really benefits them.
If I'm Alabama, I'm thankful for athletic director Greg Byrne because he went completely outside the box to hire a guy from Michigan who had been coaching at Buffalo. So I think it's Greg Byrne. He's done a great job. He knows how to run an athletics department, right? He knows how to deal with the ego of Saban, and he knows how to pick coaches. All right, time to end the show with buzzer beaters, Doug. We're going to pick some winners here. I'm going to start with a tough one. We talked about it earlier to start the show. Tennessee versus Purdue. Who are you going with?
I'm taking Purdue. Ziegler's not totally back. Plus, he's little when they go with him versus Smith. I think that we freak out about Purdue's tournament losses, and I don't think this is a Tennessee team that can beat them right now, and probably not a matchup they can beat them in March. Tennessee, one of the things they do a great job of is being physical. You can't be out physical against Purdue. I like Purdue.
Yeah, I do too. And again, even when you take Zach Edey out of the game, you could put Trey Kaufman in the game, and he can score as well. Kansas, Marquette, the headline game of the day, Doug. I'm going Marquette here with the upset. I just think, honestly, Kansas is going to have that game where they can't make a shot tonight. Marquette, Kolek goes off tonight, and they win. And Cam Jones goes off.
Kolek goes off tonight. What is going off mean?
20-plus points.
Okay. I'm going to take KU. Obviously, if you can speed up KU, they don't have a ton of ball handlers, but they're very good at passing over the top. And I'm interested to see how Hunter plays against the speed and quickness of Marquette. I'm going to take KU.
Arizona, Michigan State. I mean, this is a great matchup out in Palm Springs. I'm glad they're playing it. I'm going with my alma mater here. I'm going with Arizona. I think, again, Michigan State, they haven't gotten right yet. I think they're going to play them close, but I don't think they win this one. I think Arizona's got too much up front. Ballo, they can bring in dudes off the bench. Big Kribis has looked good, so I'm going with the Wildcats.
I'm going to go Michigan State here. You know, they've tested themselves. I know they lost to JMU, but they're obviously played a high level of schedule where they've been able to kind of pick apart things they don't do well. Not a finished product. I think playing outdoors affects the shooting, and if it becomes a rock fight, you always favor Michigan State ahead of Arizona in a rock fight.
Seton Hall versus your USC Trojans, and I'm only calling them your because they are in your backyard. I don't think this one's not going to be close. I think USC win. Seton Hall, I just don't know if Shaheen Holloway's ever going to get Seton Hall back to what Willard had him.
No, I frankly don't think so because of the dynamics of that league changing. Seton Hall's always been a hard job. It was hard for Kevin's a great coach, and look how long it took him to get it right before he left. This one's at UCSD, right? I think the winner plays the winner of Iowa and Oklahoma. I'm going to take USC as well. Not fully healthy as of yet, but Boogie Ellis playing at home in San Diego. I like USC.
All right, last one. Colorado, Florida State down there in Daytona Beach. I think the Buffs are for real here. I'm going to take Colorado.
I agree. Very good offensive team, very well coached. They have skill, they have size, they have ball handling. I like Colorado's one of those teams like, who? Yeah, they're really good.
Yeah, I mean, they got a really good point guard in KJ Simpson, Tristan Da Silva. They got a good coach who's underrated in Tad Boyle. And Florida State, frankly, doesn't have a point guard right now. All right, thanks for joining us again. Goodman versus Gottlieb. Doug, I'm finally giving you a win. You're 1-2. We'll see you next time.